Hey everybody, hope you're doing really well. So, straightforward this video, we're going to look at sharpening a saw to a crosscut pattern. Now, what I want to do is really get in our heads the difference between the crosscut and the rip. And I'm not going to confuse things by talking about rip saws and all the rest of it. I'm just going to talk about crosscut saws. Now, we all kind of know anyway that if you've got your plastic handled saws, they're not going to be good for this kind of traditional saw sharpening method. Nothing wrong with those saws, they're great, but we're going to be concentrating on these ones. Although I'm dealing with a smaller back saw, same principles apply with any crosscut saw you work with. I recommend that if you're doing this for the first time, maybe get a larger toothed saw, like a normal handsaw, a cheaper one or a second-hand one, something that if you make a mistake, you don't sweat about. And accept that this kind of process does involve a little bit of time, a little bit of understanding, but it's like a few things in life. I think things like riding a bike, being a bricklayer, plastering walls, being a good carpenter, that kind of repetition of a practical skill, you can get there. So let's dive in with a few of the key points and see if we can get them in our minds. To help us get a really clear idea of what's going on, I suggest grabbing a piece of cardboard. Now this is from a cereal packet, okay, and it demonstrates the point just fine, okay. So with this, what we're going to be able to do is make a point and really understand what we're trying to achieve. So first of all, here's the saw, here's what it looks like close up. So take your piece of cardboard and just draw out a line parallel to an edge up here and strike a line back 75 degrees, and that'll give you the angle of the rake of your teeth because the cut is going to be moving that way. Then on your teeth through here, do a shaded line coming up through to show you those knife edges that you get on a crosscut saw. Okay, so it's going to vary from side to side. You see that side has the hatchings, that side doesn't. Okay, so draw that on, and the angle here, it's a 60 degree here. So if you've got your saw file imagined there, it's tilted back, but then it's that 60 degree triangle, your equilateral, your Toblerone sits on there, and that's your tooth. Now, if you take your time to draw that, that starts getting your head around the fact that we're not 90 degrees here, 75, it's just relaxed just that little bit. Okay, good to get your head around that so you get a real thought, and just let that sink in. Then score a little line here so you can easily bend the teeth. Okay, so what we're going to do with that one is we want to make sure that we've got the teeth without the grind mark this way. Okay, and then if you can see it, push it away, push it towards, push it away, push it towards. Okay, now you've made a template with some set. Okay, and again, this is all part of visualizing what's going on, and that's important. Okay, so we take our template here and we've got the handle of the saw. If you've been through a nice airport somewhere, you might have got yourself a Toblerone. If not, you can make a piece of wood like this, and this is your imaginary saw file. Now, we know that the face of that is 75 degrees, and we've drawn it out, and we get a feel for how the file feels in that position. Okay, you can just let it rest there and just start thinking about it, thinking, okay, yeah, I get that, see what's going on. And with that, with a crosscut saw, what you would do is you would push that file through like this, angling it this way, and this angle is not dead square, it's at about 60 degrees. Okay, and these angles aren't super critical, you know, I drew 75, it doesn't matter. Basically, all we're talking about here is that it's not bolt upright, it's just relaxed. Okay, and then here, the same thing. We're not talking about it has to be exact. It just, whatever you want to do, you want to make it consistent as you go through. So what that does is it's going to be putting that edge here and the edge also on that side as you go through. So it's filing there and the face of that tooth at the same time. Now this Toblerone is a little bit small. It would be good to have a bigger one, but I'll get on to why it's this shape in a moment. So you do this one, then you skip. You can't do that when you go to number 2. Same thing, you scoot through. You're filing this and this, the front of that tooth, and as it goes down, you just naturally do it. And don't overthink the file pressure. Where the file sits, just pass it through and be consistent, because whatever you do to one side, you're going to do to the other, and as long as you treat everybody equally, your saw's going to be just fine. We miss one, and in we go. Okay, and we would go down through. And then we're just going to turn the saw around, and we've got the same situation. Here, we've got on the end, we're going to be pushing through there, miss one, come through, file, come through, and file. Okay, so there's more going on than dealing with a rip saw, and practicing on a piece of cardboard like that just allows you, with no stress, to wrap your head around it and to have a little template you can have hung up in your shop, where it could be, do you know what, I haven't sharpened a crosscut in quite a while, you know, I'm just going to grab that and just visualize it again. Okay, now something else you might consider doing, and it's not essential, is we should know that the saw files are equilateral triangles. Now, if you want to get a real idea of what your saw file is doing, you can make a saw file handle that is the same profile as your saw file. So when you introduce it to teeth and you're going to be doing your sharpening, you get a feel for what's going on, what you're going to do, and then you can introduce it, and you've got that control, and it gives you that ability to control rake and know what's going on. Now that isn't essential, you know, it's just one of those little tricks that might help you. There are also proprietary guides. There's quite a nifty one by Veritas. I've never used it, but it's a very clever one, and it might be something you want to look into. Now, something else to consider, if you're a home woodworker, don't feel that you have to sharpen all of your saws. You might decide, you know what, I'm just going to sharpen my rip ones, because rip ones are pretty straightforward. Rip saws, it just, yeah, it's borderline falling off a log. But don't be afraid if you don't fancy this. All right, there's no shame in that. Certainly on your smaller saws with less teeth, you can get away with a rip profile for quite a lot. It's not quite as plush as a crosscut, but you can get away with it. And you can use alternatives like the Japanese pull saws with their replaceable blades. Ain't no shame in it, okay? We've all got different time pressures, different resources, and the trick is with a lot of these things is repetition. I'd be tempted, if you wanted to get good at it, go to a car boot sale, buy a job lot of rubbishy saws on eBay. They don't even have to have perfectly flat plates or anything like that. You can just have maybe, I don't know, a few weekends practicing your filing and see where you end up. You might think, do you know what, that's not for me. But remember, home woodworking needs to be fun. You need to enjoy yourself. So let's get set up and take a look at what we're going to do with a saw. Having somewhere to securely hold your saw is super important, because if you can't control it, then you've got problems. What I like to be able to do as well is not have to stop partway through the sharpening process. Some vices get made too short, especially when they're for things like panel saws and hand saws. My recommendation would be, whatever size saw you're going to work on, do it so once you get going and you're in the groove of doing your filing, you keep going. You don't want to stop start. Now, if you've got a saw that's in good nick and it still feels like it's got a reasonable amount of set on it, then you don't have to set them every single time. A new saw, you know, saw filing and keeping your saws in good order, that it's a little and often, and then you'll get the feel for it. Don't let them get super bad if you can help with it. I'll put a link to modifying the saw pliers in the link. These, I mean, you can get them antique or new. This is a Somax, I think, and it's very straightforward. I won't cover too much because you should know this kind of stuff anyway, and this is the easy stuff. Okay, Let's see if we can get a bit of clarity here. Okay, so with our teeth, all we want to look at is, you can see that one is bent towards us, that one is bent away, that one's bent away, that one's bent away, that one's bent away. Okay, so I set my saw pliers to the absolute minimum they'll do, and I've modified them so they're hardly putting on any set. And it's just a case of putting it on, looking for the one that's facing away, and you just gently squash. Okay, and don't rush. Speed comes with practice, and all of these things, it's a bit of an art. Okay, it all takes a little bit of time, and you'll get there. It doesn't take crazy pressure. Just keep an eye on what you're doing. And certainly joinery saws where you're working on dry timber and you want neat results, you don't need masses of set anyway. It's just enough. So just work along, and again, you're going to be skipping a tooth because you're only pushing the teeth that's already leaning that way, you're pushing it over, and then you'd flip the saw over and do the other side. On top of the sharpening jig here, I've just done some lines, and what I've done initially, just to get the frame of reference, is draw a line for the gullet we're going to be dropping the file in, because we're going to be filing one, missing one, filing one, missing one, filing one, missing one. Now, if you wanted to, it's going to be time consuming, but you could draw that on the top of your saw vise. You could put a bit of masking tape on there and mark every single gullet that you're going to sharpen, if that helps you. Then on the corresponding side, it's going to be coming back through on the other gullet. So again, you're beginning to develop that way to visualize what you're doing. Okay, if you need to get a closer look at what you're doing, you can pick up some cheap spectacles. You can get like 4 times magnification glasses at supermarkets and discount shops. You don't have to buy the big like science conservation looking thingies. They may not help you. You might be just fine how you are. It really doesn't matter. And then it's just about, before you get filing, visualizing what's going to be working. So we've got that first tooth of the saw that is tipping towards us, and that's the gullet I've got out first, and we're going to be going in there, and we're going to be introducing the saw file like so. In it goes at approximate 60-degree angle, and it goes. We're going to be missing one, not going to do that one, then that one, in we go, and it's going to be putting an edge there and there. Then we miss that one, and in we go, and across we go. All right, and then we've got that feel there. So just take your time, let those thoughts sink in, and then we can make a start. Now, a word on saw files. This one is dropping down into the range of being about 14 teeth per inch, and I end up using a needle file on this one. I find the saw file that Barco sell that's supposed to go down to 14 too big. It just seems to annihilate the teeth. Who knows, I might have picked up the wrong files by mistake, but they're far too big for me, so I revert to one of these little needle files instead. Just take your time. Again, home workshop, often garage, the light in your garage stinks, but we do what we can. 1, 2, 3, and just light passes and up. You're skipping one, then you're in the next one. Again, get that moment, and then you're in the next one, checking what you're doing. And what you'll find is you'll soon get a bit of rhythm. And what I try and do with all these things is try and make this whole process repeatable. For your information, the saw handle is down at that end. So I start with the saw handle effectively under my armpit. See if I can just pull out a little bit there for you. I'm coming over here, so my arm's coming over, my armpit's there. And that just kind of, it's just a routine to get into, do the same thing every single time. All right, So we're just going to work through and do that filing. And if you do that prep work with a template and you get it into your head, hopefully we can avoid any disasters, even if we choose to do it on a finer saw like this one. Now what I'm doing with a file is, obviously by the book you should be lifting the file and then pushing it forwards again. But what I'm doing is I'm just lifting and not putting pressure on the backward stroke, and I'm trying to do 3 forward strokes of roughly the same consistency. Now, there's only so much you're going to want to watch as somebody putting filing action into place. So I'm going to work my way all the way down through, and then we're going to turn the saw around. And also the vise, in the vise here, I'm holding the saw file pretty much flat. You can, as you get more experienced, if you want to experiment with sloping gullets, knock yourself out. But I would suggest for most home woodworkers who just want to have a bit of fun, get some sharp tools, make a few things, just keep it straight for now. All right. And what's nice is I've only done one side, but it's starting to get that stickiness that a new saw gets, or a new freshly sharpened saw gets. You can soon start to tell when a saw gets dull, because you can see the flat spots on the top of the teeth, just like if you hold up a chisel to the light. If it gets a bit dull, you can see the damage, the reflection on the edge. You can see the same with your saw. Now, because this saw was a restoration job for me, the gullets are quite dirty, so it's really easy to see where the saw spun around in the vise, handle up this end, and now we're going to be going in at this angle. Okay, so it's the same situation as before. If you need to give yourself a little reminder on what you're doing, we've got the teeth, we set them so we know what's going on. We are going to be going in and dealing with the sawtooth. Let me just get you up a little bit. There we go. Remember, we're going to be coming through there. Missed that one. Coming through there. Missed that one. Coming through there. Okay. Down towards the handle like that. Again, it's up to you how you do these things, but I like to do the first one under my armpit there, and then moving away down through here on the return journey. I know this video is never going to win any awards for cinematography, but that is okay. And the light's such a bonus if you can get some really beneficial light. So good, but you are where you are, and a lot of it you'll kind of get with feel. And that's what's different now. I can feel the stickiness here. Again, you don't want to force your fingers into it, but you could feel that if you push that into the fibres of something, it's going to grab. Again, not that way, obviously, because our saw is sharpened correctly, but you can just feel that grab. Okay? I've got brightly shining gullets. They've all had a sharpen. And if you get down and just have a look, don't be surprised if your teeth don't look absolutely like a machine's made them, because you're not a machine, you're a human, and it's difficult to get that machine look. But don't worry, you don't need that. One of the last things you can do, I'm just taking out, it's feeling good both sides, bit of slipstone, oil stone, slipstone. This is an India stone. Just very gently rest it on the side of the saw and dress it down. Just hold it on the flat of the stone. That just regularises any oversetting you might have done here or there, and then we're ready to have a little test. So I've not picked a cheapo bit of softwood. It's a piece of hardwood, not the hardest in the world, it's just a piece of cherry. And don't expect when you sharpen a handsaw that you're going to be getting electric powered work. It just, you know, I'm not going to go chung, it's going to be cut straight off, but you know. And there we have it. That is massively satisfying. You can see there's no nasty breakout anywhere. Went straight to those knife lines all the way around. Bit of breakout there, nothing terrible at all, and it's such smooth cutting. Okay, so that's going to be great for tenon shoulders, things of that work, anything where you're working across the grain. Take your time, have fun with it. If it's not for you and it doesn't seem to click, don't worry. But honestly, you figure so much out by making this cardboard template. If you're lucky enough to have a Toblerone, you can practice with one of those. But if you don't, just raid a cereal packet And it's at that whole thing where you're going to be coming in and you just practice what you're doing and get it visualized in your head. And then it's all about rhythm and consistency, and you'll get there.